The occupation's pitch sounds like it should be the perfect video game for this channel. You're a journalist that's hot on the tail of a political conspiracy, and you're let loose into an immersive sim playground with 4 real-life hours to piece together enough clues and get your story to print. The occupation sounds like such a perfect fit for the time-strapped player that it would be downright irresponsible of me to not cover it. But of course, it's not nearly as simple as that. It's never as simple as that. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm going to tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're diving deep into a political thriller in The Occupation. Before we get into the review proper, I requested and did receive a free press copy of this game, so a big thank you to White Paper Games and a heads up for everyone else watching. But right off the bat, The Occupation deviates slightly from that initial pitch with a tutorial that does a solid job teaching you the very basics of how the game works without having to worry about being on a timer. And from there, instead of one massive case to solve that you run through in 4 hours, the game is divided into a trio of 1-hour levels with occasional cuts to flashbacks of other events. Every time you show up in a building, you'll have an interview scheduled to happen in an hour, and in the meantime, you're left to skulk about and engage in some corporate espionage as you desperately look for clues, following various leads as they crisscross each other all over the building. Then once it's meeting time, you'll sit down and grill a company bigwig and use any evidence you found to force them to go on record about the shady dealings and cover-ups going on at the company. There's also the fact that you're not going to successfully pull off your first run. You're gonna get caught, and after a few stern talks, get kicked out. Getting caught red-handed is usually a strike, even if you manage to slip away. The guards know your face and aren't stupid after all. And your 3 strikes don't reset when you get to a new level. Getting caught once or twice early on is an albatross around your neck in later levels, and inversely, good performance can even open up new routes in future buildings. All of that means the margin for error is very low, and if you're like me and still learning the maps, you're going to bumble. A lot. And you'll have a ton of learning to do, because like any immersive sim, The Occupation has a wide variety of tiny little systems to interact with. You'll have to memorize air duct layouts, where different keycards or safe passwords are, and the schedules of different key staff in order to quickly move about the building and follow up on your different leads. You might find a hint when putzing around a random computer or when your editor finally calls you up, but then the path to getting a usable clue might involve, for example, getting a lead telling you something might be in a specific office, then finding a way past that office's lock and finding an audio log that in turn tells you to go find a safe on the opposite side of the building, then break in there and finally get your clue. And here's the thing, this is a lot of fun. And The Occupation has a ton of little details, like how you can actually close an office's blinds so that the guards can't see you messing around inside. But these multi-step puzzles themselves usually only have 1 or 2 ways to solve them, which makes The Occupation feel less like an immersive sim and more like a giant video game escape room. Except the staff watching you from behind the cameras aren't there to helpfully hand you clues when you're stuck, but are actively hunting you. And the face of your would-be hunter is Steve.
Mr. Miller, is it? We weren't expecting you for another 20 minutes.
I love Steve, because he's this total doofus that's just trying to do his job and improve his lot in life just like the rest of us. But I hate Steve, because his job is to constantly screw up mine. He always seems to magically show up whenever you're skulking about doing crimes like some sort of dorky Mr. X, heralded by random movie quotes as he practices his acting while patrolling the halls. And yet, this guy always manages to sneak up on me, spot me through some random window I wasn't paying attention to, and bust me. It also doesn't help that every little thing you do requires you to slowly interact with an object, which leaves you out in the open and vulnerable for longer than is comfortable. Want to read a note? You'll have to manually open it 1 button at a time. Want to open a door? You're going to have to hold W for a few seconds to get it open. Compared to just usually being able to pop a door open with a quick button press, this feels almost frustratingly cumbersome, but I have to imagine that it's a decision made by design. These purposely awkward systems force you to remain out in the open for an extended period of time. And when you're in plain sight with people nearby, it makes moving around stealthily all the more nerve-wracking. Speaking of purposely awkward design, however, we need to talk about the story for a bit. The Occupation opens with a whole lot of stuff thrown at you. Riots, kids getting kidnapped, terrorist attacks, and a lot of villains thumping tables and going on about how Britain needs order and security, aka authoritarianism. This all seems by design. Like, this is one of those games that wants you to piece everything together through subtle clues after the fact, which is a fitting way to tell a story, considering you're playing a journalistic gumshoe. But so far, the plot just doesn't quite have enough connective tissue to make sense. I'll give the Occupation credit where credit is due. It's nice to see a studio make a game with some explicit political themes and not shy away from them, unlike some people that come to mind. But I'm halfway through the Occupation, and all the clues I'm finding are just opening up entirely new lines of inquiry instead of expanding on everything that gets set up in the introduction. I'm willing to believe these dots all come together at some point, but 5 hours in, the Occupation's plot remains mostly inscrutable. Hell, beyond a single sheet of paper of legalese I found in the tutorial, I don't even know what the Union Act, the big government regulation that I'm supposed to be stopping, even does. Just that it's very, very bad. That even such major plot points are so opaque frustrates me. But it's time to ask, what do you get out of 5 hours with the Occupation? Well, my first run ended in disaster, my second had my game crash and lose almost an hour of progress, and on my third attempt, I finally got somewhere. I'm still deep into figuring out the ins and outs of the Occupation's second building, but even if that process has been a bit more drawn out than I first expected, it's still been a pretty fun one. There's a lot of entertaining exploration to be done here, and each level feels like it has its own language that I'm slowly memorizing, which is a surprisingly rare feeling in this medium. Most of my entertainment has come from the Occupation's mechanical systems. Those looking for an engrossing political thriller might want to look elsewhere, but if you've got an itch for the one-of-a-kind gameplay of an immersive sim, the Occupation comes pretty dang close to scratching that itch. It's a playground that I'm still enjoying running around in. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this first 5 review. If you did, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're looking for games that value your time and don't pad themselves, I'm your guy. And be sure to check out some of my other reviews or some longer form content while you're here. But regardless, thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.